Here's a video on making slip. Slip is basically clay with water added to it, breaking down the clay to make it so that it's liquidy, creamy, kind of like yogurt, and we use slip like a glue when we join clay to clay. So clay can be in its plastic state, nice and soft like this. Clay can be in between, halfway dry, which we refer to as leather hard, and it can be like this, which we refer to as bone dry. When it's bone dry, it will snap and break quite easily. Now, when you're making slip, if you can find nice bone dry clay to make your slip with, it will disintegrate and break down and dissolve in the water much faster than clay that already has moisture in it. But since most of you guys all have brand new bag clay, you don't really have that option. So you're going to take a little bit of your bag clay and you're just going to tear off small amounts and put it into your container. This isn't going to make a lot of slip, but I don't anticipate us needing a whole lot at the start. The bigger your container, the more slip you can make, and the less you have to make it. So just keep tearing off little pieces of clay. The smaller they are, the better the water will be able to penetrate and absorb in between them and make them nice and soft. Go ahead and fill your container up with clay until it's about 2/3 of the way full. Okay, that's probably going to do it right there. Then go ahead and take it to your sink or get a cup of water and fill it with water till the water just covers the clay or up to the top of it. Go ahead and take the plastic lid and go ahead and close it up. Let this hang out overnight. You might even give it 2 nights if you have the time. And just let that water break down the clay and start to soak into it, and it won't quite dissolve like the bone dry clay would, but it will go ahead and soften up and make it easier to work with. So I did one yesterday, and this is the one that I did yesterday. It's been sitting and soaking overnight. So when you take the lid off, you can see that it's actually kind of sunk down to the bottom. So at this point, if you have a paintbrush or a stick, you can go ahead and start to stir this up. And as you start to stir it up, it's going to start to mix together. And you just want to keep mixing it. Now, if for some reason it doesn't break down and mix well by itself, you can always get in there with your fingers or your hand and just kind of squeeze it between your fingers and kind of squish it up so that all the lumps go away. But if you use the brush and you move the brush around enough, it will start to break down and it will start to come together into a nice creamy slip. So, for the sake of time, this is also one that I did last night, and I stirred it up just before I started making this video. And basically just kept stirring it over at the sink. Little water splashed out here and there. But as you keep stirring it, it's going to come together and it's going to look quite creamy, quite smooth. Like I say, almost like a creamy yogurt. And that's the way we want our slip to look when we're finished. So then you can go ahead and just clean off your brush. Put the excess back in it. And then what you're going to do is put the lid on this and close it up so it stays nice and moist. We don't want it to dry out. If it does ever start to dry out, we can just add more water to it, let it sit overnight, and then stir it up again until it's the right consistency. So that's basically it in terms of making our slip. I don't know any quicker, easier way to do it other than to use bone dry clay. Sometimes if you're wheel throwing, you will create a natural slip or slurry as you work with the clay and as you wipe your hands off in your bucket of water from wheel throwing, and you'll find that it gathers down in the bottom of the bucket, and usually you can just drain off the water and make it that way. But since we aren't at a point that we're wheel throwing and we're doing mainly hand building, this is the easiest way I know to make slip. I have tried it with a hand mixer, I've tried it with a blender, and it just kind of clumps up and makes a big clod of clay in the blender. So the easiest way to do it is just get in there with your fingers or use a nice brush and keep stirring till you get it all mixed up. All right, we'll see you next time.